thought leadership team here at Project Management Institute and one of the leads in researching the integration of generative AI into project management. As artificial intelligence reshapes how we work, understanding Gen AI has become increasingly vital for project management success. Today, we're fortunate to have two distinguished experts who will help demystify this transformative technology. Let me introduce our speakers. First, Kate Sewell is Director of Technical Project Management for Granite at IBM Research, where she leads the development and implementation of IBM's flagship large language model that's now being used by over 160,000 consultants worldwide. Joining us as well is Ernar Makishev, and a highly certified project management expert holding PMP, PMFP, PFMP, and ACP credentials. With over a decade of consulting experience in Central Asia and extensive experience training project management professionals, Ernar brings a unique perspective on implementing emerging technologies in project management environments. Following our speakers' presentations, we'll open the floor for Q&A, where you'll have the opportunity to engage directly with our experts. So without further delay, I'll hand it over to Kate to begin our discussion. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks so much, Ian. All right, everybody. Really excited to be here today. As Ian mentioned, my name is Kate Sewell. I'm a director at IBM Research, and I work on IBM's large language models called Granite. And today, I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview of generative AI, some of the key fundamentals that we recommend folks keep in mind when learning how to get their hands on and get started with this technology. So as I mentioned, I'm from IBM Research. If you're not familiar, we're a global organization that works on leading edge AI technologies, including generative AI. And one of the reasons that I am so excited about generative AI is it really introduces an entirely new way to think about development and building with models. So if anyone has had any experience with AI to date, you've probably run into one of the biggest blockers that we've historically had in terms of using AI and making it helpful and practical. And that is, it requires traditionally a lot of labeled data. So in order to have AI to support a project, you need lots of labeled data about that project. What generative AI actually poses, and the class of models that we talk about in generative AI are called foundation models, including large language models or foundation models for language, is they actually require very little labeled data. They get away with this. The reason why they can take advantage of this is they were trained by model providers like IBM on trillions of data points from natural language across the internet. And that gives them this really excellent basis, the starting point that can then be easily adapted and used for many downstream tasks without needing labeled data. So this one model can support things. We'll talk about tasks like summarization. We'll talk about Q&A and chatbots. It can do all of these different things without having to bring your own labeled data into the equation. Now, generative AI, I'm sure everyone has heard some of the buzz and hype, and hopefully have even tried, working with some of these chatbots already, just having conversations with them. It's expected to have a tremendous impact on enterprise and on business settings. But if we look at how these models were trained, so if you recall, I said they're kind of pre-trained, that we have the starting point where they're trained on massive amount of internet data. Very little of that data actually is based off the enterprise. And so we have right now a bit of a mismatch where only 10% of generative AI POCs are expected to go into production this year in enterprise settings. So there's a real question of how can I take advantage of all of the promise that generative AI poses and actually bring it back to your work, into your daily lives, and use it to actually drive value. And one of the things that I'm really excited about at IBM, and that I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about today, is how we can start to take these models and better customize them for enterprise tasks, not just kind of what we'd consider consumer chat use cases, but really enterprise tasks. And the key to being able to bring models into real world enterprise workflows is really being able to customize them with enterprise data. So again, if we go back to how these models are trained, they're basically trained on all of the text data that's available on the internet. That's all public information. It's not necessarily the proprietary information that your companies work on and run their businesses on. And if we can bring some of that proprietary information into the model, it's going to make it far more impactful and really unlock a lot of the promise that generative AI poses for enterprise. So how can we leverage enterprise data for generative AI? Well, there's a couple of different things to think about. So first and foremost is analyzing information and automating workflows with what's called grounded prompting. I'm going to get into each of these in a little bit more detail, but this is really taking a model off the shelf. You don't need to do any customization, and you can start to bring in your enterprise data and ask questions about it, do different tasks. There's also what we call retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And this is a technique that I'll get into in just a moment about how you can create proprietary chatbots, basically question answering services that allow you to make these chatbots experts on your own enterprise data. And then finally, I'm going to talk about how we can customize a model even further if we have some data at our disposal that better describes a task. So bringing a little bit of that labeled data back into the mix to really specialize a model on a specific enterprise domain, a project, or area of expertise that you want your model to have. And this has all sorts of performance benefits, both in terms of accuracy of the model, but also reducing the costs of the model when it's deployed. So we're going to go through these three, and really they're meant to pose a spectrum of how you can start and get started today with just something off the shelf and bring a little bit of information from your businesses and your projects into your workflows, all the way to fully customizing a model if you have a more data-rich project environment and what that can unlock for you. So let's start with the first one here, analyzing information and automating workflows with grounded prompting. Now, I'm not sure if anyone on the call has started to play around with these chatbots yet. You know, ChatGPT, for example, you can just log on online and start having a conversation. But one of the things that these models are really good at is what's called zero-shot prompting. So when I say zero shot, I mean, I'm not going to provide any labeled examples. I'm just going to give it an instruction, such as summarize this document. I'm going to give it some grounding data. And by grounding data, I really mean like a document, some key information, some enterprise information that I'm bringing to the task. In this case, here's an example just using IBM's annual report that we publish every year. And you ask the model to do something with that grounding content. And I don't need to tell the model what it means to summarize. I don't need to give the model examples of what a good summary looks like. I can simply provide instructions to the model. And again, it's going to take all of that knowledge and learning that it's already been imbued with by the model provider, and it's going to execute this task, providing a very nice, concise summary of the annual report in this case. Now, you can get more complex. You can provide more definitions or requirements, rather, of what you want the summary to do, how you want it structured and formatted, and these models do a really nice job of, again, without any labeled data, being able to take some sort of enterprise grounding content and perform the task. So it's a great way to get started. And there's lots of different things that we're seeing you can do with this type of zero-shot grounded prompting today. So summarization, obviously, these models can handle increasingly long documents. They're now at the point where they could summarize small books. So they can really handle a ton of information, and you can kind of copy and paste it in, and you'd be surprised with what you can get the model to summarize. They can also create content. And what a really powerful use case is when you bring key information, key variables, and then you have the model create a project plan, for example, or you have a model create an email based off of some bullets that you provide. And they can do a really great job just generating that new content. Classification is another core task that we're seeing a lot of companies be really successful with this type of zero-shot prompting. So again, you can take an example being a customer complaint or a different type of project output, and have the model classify it. You could do sentiment classification. You could say, here are my categories A, B, or C, give a little description of what each category means, and then ask the model to classify, and it will return the class of the text that was provided. Named entity recognition is another common pattern that we're seeing, where you can ask the model to extract key pieces of information. So if I give it, again, a very long document, I could ask it to extract all of the, in a contract, for example, you could ask it to extract all of the different clauses that are about a certain type of risk in the contract that you're trying to review. And so it's a great way to sort through large amounts of unstructured text data. And then finally, there's insights extraction. There's kind of a higher order level of thinking that you can, and I use thinking here lightly, but level order of analysis that a model can do in terms of looking at a document and asking the model to come up with, some of the top insights, key takeaways, and really not just verbatim extract values, but also process and put some additional summarization behind the content. So this really is a very powerful, and mostly because of its breadth, this technique, it can handle many different things. But there are also use cases where you're going to require a little bit more expertise about a subject area. And many folks are probably familiar on this call with chatbots, with question answering, and having an assistant, for example, that you can ask about the latest information on X, Y, or Z. And that's where we have to start to get a little bit more sophisticated when it comes to generative AI. And in order to do that, we use a process called retrieval augmented generation. This is where we're going to take a model and we're actually going to provide a database that the model has access to their research question, and then provide an answer back to the user. And so the way it works at the high level, I'm not going to get too into the weeds on this call, but just to give people some basic intuition of what's going on behind the scenes, is a user is going to ask a question, and there's going to be a second model that's actually going to take that question and it's going to search through your database and find all the relevant content that best matches that question. And it's going to take all of that relevant text and it's going to give it back to the model, our LLM, with the question. And now the model is going to answer the question based off of all of that information that you provided from your own database, your own enterprise proprietary knowledge. And this is a really great way to allow models to get specialized on some of the latest information without having to resort to more expensive and complicated training. And if you think about it, if you have content that's continuously updating, these models, when they're trained, they generally have a knowledge cutoff, right? And so they will have only seen or heard about events up to a certain date, and that's when the training stops. And so you can't ask a model about a change in a regulation, for example, that happened in November of 2024, if the model's knowledge cutoff is September of 2024. So RAG allows you to bring much more up-to-date relevant information into the model's understanding. It allows you to specialize the model on proprietary data that the model did not have access to before. And it allows you to provide different degrees of safety improvements to the model. So if anyone's familiar with some of the drawbacks of generative AI, one example is these models can do what's called a hallucination. So that's where a model might try and answer a question. And there are many technical reasons why this happens, but sometimes the model will provide an answer that seems like it made it up. It's not correct. It is just trying to ultimately predict the most likely words in a sentence. If we use RAG, if we actually give the model the exact content it's supposed to use when answering a question, this can help greatly reduce that risk. So there's a lot of benefits to retrieval augmented generation, but it does require that broader system to be set up that I visualized briefly. So it is a little bit more complicated to implement. So there are these trade-offs that have to be managed. Finally, I'll talk about how if we actually want to update our model and start to optimize performance of the model, we can go further and not just give our model custom information, but we can actually customize the model based off of that information and what's called tuning. So tuning is where you take a model, right? We've got our visualization from before, we've got our pre-trained generative AI LLM. We could actually add a little bit of data back into the equation, and we can train the model exactly what we mean for a given task. So you don't need nearly as much labeled data as you would have needed if you were to start from scratch in kind of the traditional paradigm. So there is still a lot of ultimately boost performance while reducing your costs, because you can get away with a much smaller model when it comes time to deploy. So I'll give you an example. We talked about back with grounded prompting, we talked about named entity recognition, which is fact extraction, being able to extract key pieces of information out of a document. Well, let's say we've got a 10K filing that is a very long, complicated document, and we want to extract all the different mentions of interests that a company might have taken out. So we can use grounded prompting. We can give the model the document. We can explain the fact that we want the model to extract, and we can even provide a couple of examples to help boost performance. And the models do pretty well. But these models that are going to do well on the more complicated tasks tend to be larger. So here I've got an example of a 70 billion parameter model. If you're not familiar, the number of parameters for a model is a way you measure model size. And all you need to know is the bigger the model, the more expensive it is going to be to run. So these models, you could do the easier just prompting method to run this task, or you could get a much smaller model. This model is only 3 billion parameters in size, and you could tune it. You could provide some labeled data, and there's all sorts of how-to guides and things to get started, but it is more complicated as a task. And you can actually train the model on exactly what you want. And this smaller model, when tuned on this task, both doubles the accuracy, and it's an incredibly small model and can be deployed at a much smaller fraction of the cost of deploying a 70 billion parameter model per se. So if you have examples where you have a smaller ROI per se, where you really need to get a lower cost solution to drive value, or it's just not worth automating because using a big model and prompting is too expensive, that's when you might want to start looking at how you can fine tune and train models in order to boost performance, get away with smaller models, and try and make the task more suitable for a large language model. So again, I'll just take a step back. There's a lot of different ways to get started with generative AI. There's a lot of techniques out here. This hopefully is just a really quick overview and survey to help paint the picture of, all the different types of things you can start to do to bring real enterprise data into generative AI workflows, covering everything from, just bringing a data point in to your prompts and, asking a model to do a different task, to giving a model a database like you would in a RAG workflow of enterprise data that it can use to answer questions, to even training the model with specialized data so that the model can better perform specialized tasks. And so you can reduce your overall costs of deployment, making it more suitable and scalable. With that, I'll pass it over to Ernar, who's going to take us through some more specific examples of generative AI in a project management domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. It was a wonderful presentation. It's very hard for me to compete with you after this content, but I try. So I'm sharing my screen. I will try to use it as practical as possible. First of all, let me put it in full mode. I hope you see my screen. So my name is Ernar Makishev. I have several credentials from Project Management Institute, PMP, PFMP, ACP. Actually, I have Scrum certification. I work in Kazakhstan in Central Asia. And I have published a book, How to Become a Project Manager, which I wrote using ChatGPT. Yes, I said it. I use ChatGPT in my writing experience, but not in the way you are expecting me to use it. I will show you later. I'm sure I didn't use it for content. I used it in order to make my book to look better, more proficient, more professional. So, as we all know, there are certain core skills which PMI favors in terms of project management skills. So first of all, PMI loves technical skills. ways of working, soft skills, hard skills, business environment skills, etc. But I think it should add in the list of skills required for project managers is AI literacy, and moreover, and more, I think it should be AI augmentation. So what I mean by that, in modern project managers should be professionally should be a professional user of AI in terms of data analysis and text processing. So I'm gonna show my my application, which I use on a day-to-day basis, and it brings a lot of advantages to any project managers. It increases my efficiency. Sometimes I suffer, sometimes I fight ChatGPT for hours instead of doing my work. Instead of spending like 15 minutes to do the actual work, I spend 1 hour communicating with ChatGPT, but I have my own medicine for that. AI improving accuracy is improving accuracy because you are making less mistakes, because less stupid mistakes like grammar mistakes, punctuations, etc. And also it increase your creativity. And I will show you a couple of my life hacks, how to increase creativity in project. But there are some concerns about data privacy, especially for ChatGPT, when you're sharing all the confidential information of your company to the service, which you have no idea how it works, and you're hoping it's safe. Sometimes ChatGPT as a major tool for AI is simply hallucinating and simply wrong. And I think in order to improve, to have advantages in your day-to-day basis, you have to identify first what tasks you can automate. For example, number one task, which is almost everybody is automating right now, is minutes of meeting. You can do minutes of meeting using ChatGPT, using Zoom, using Microsoft Teams. It's already on board. You can use transcription. You can transcribe what speakers are saying and put it in a text format using ChatGPT. But in the future, I would expect to see real data connection to ChatGPT, to any AI tool. So, for example, in construction, you can have some data sensors for different applications, and you can implement data analysis on a live basis, so on the live streaming the data to your database. And this is my presentation. I promised you to be short, and I will proceed to the practical part, which is you can see my Google Chrome, I hope, and I'm gonna show ChatGPT, but I'm not gonna teach you how to use ChatGPT. My 7 years old son is using ChatGPT better than me. He is having conversations with ChatGPT and learning a lot. I'm using ChatGPT on a daily basis using 4O, ominous. So this is paid subscription. That's the only paid subscription service I'm going to show you today. The rest, the other services which I'm using to augment ChatGPT, they are completely free. And we will start from data analysis, and then we will process to text processing. So first of all, I'm going to show you the Mermaid Life. It's my weapon of choice. I choose this weapon every time I need to fight customer with some diagrams. And first application is Gantt chart. We all love Gantt charts. But sometimes you don't have Microsoft project, sometimes you don't have Primavera with you or on your computer, and you need just a simple roadmap, simple Gantt chart. You can just use this service. I'm not even logged into this service. It's completely free. Of course, there is a paid version which also has built inside of it already inside. There is an AI tool, but I'm using it like that. I'm copy paste the example code to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to please use this code as a reference and make a Gantt chart of a breakfast, for example. What it will generate, we'll see right now. So I will just copy and paste the following code into the, so I'm not sure if you can see, I will zoom in. There is the recipe of a perfect breakfast on a Gantt chart. You have to prepare ingredients, cook eggs, toast breads, brew coffee, serve, and enjoy. Enjoy the most important part of this process. So you can modify it as you wish. For example, if you want to enjoy a bit more than 20 minutes, you can have 30 minutes. So this is just one application. The other application I'm using very often is this quadrant chart, which is perfect for stakeholder engagement. So when you are analyzing stakeholder, you are identifying stakeholder, their interest and power. You can use it as a, for example, it's not the campaign, but stakeholder A. And now stakeholder, where is this stakeholder? Yes, here. Stakeholder A is located in this quadrant, which I have to rename. For example, low interest, high interest. Now it looks more like stakeholder matrix. Low interest, high interest, low power, high power. So it's very simple power interest grid, which you can use to visualize. I know nobody does that. You all use Microsoft Excel to illustrate this in the table, but I like to use more visualization, which show it just reads better. Okay, this is my second tool, which I wanted to show you. Third tool might be the mind map. We all love a good mind map. For example, if in terms of project management, I can, just a second, I can copy and paste it into ChatGPT and ask, make a code for quality on a project of a gas pipeline. I hope it understands what I mean. It increases creativity actually when you are feeling lazy and you are not familiar with this tool. You can just put the code inside of this tool and generate a very nice, beautiful mind map, which you can use to increase creativity, to find new ideas and missions which you can miss instead. Also, sometimes I'm using the Mermaid Live editor for bar chart generating of bar charts, because sometimes when I'm tired of ChatGPT hallucinating and not making charts as I wanted to. Sometimes I don't want to open Microsoft Excel. I'm just I'm inputting my data and asking to do XY chart, bar chart, to illustrate my ideas, for example, in the reports. I think that's all applications with this tool, except I didn't show you that you can download it in any format, JSON format, but for the quadrant chart, you can download it in PNG and put it, no P. Okay, something is wrong. Sample, actions. So I can download it in PNG and just copy paste it in my document, in my presentation. Okay, let's go further. The next tool I wanted to present you, that was Mermaid Live, which is brilliant way to work with data, to analyze data, to modify it, to visualize it, instead of using Microsoft Excel, which I'm a big fan, of course, as we all are. But sometimes you just need very simple online tool that very easy and very fast. So you have to learn the final tool instead of and how to use it with ChatGPT. It will increase your productivity tenfold, I think. And next tool which I wanted to present you is rawgraphs.io. It's also a free tool, online tool. You can put in the address bar this website, and you can access it as you see on my screen, exactly the same. And I have asked ChatGPT before this webinar some data on Olympic Games to illustrate how to use this tool. So this data on the 2024 Summer Olympic Games in Paris, based on the countries. And there are two ways. You can just copy and paste it like that, copy data and put it in this paste data. So you put it inside of rawgraphs.io, and then you have options how to demonstrate how to use this data. For example, I feel that I'm gonna go with sunburst diagram, which I love, and I'm drag and drop country. I drag and drop gold medals, and here you are. You can see the data visualizing that United States has how many? Okay, just let me show. No, I'm not sure where to put the numbers, but you can see clearly United States in the first place, China, Great Britain, France, Australia, Japan, etc. Maybe we can just dig deeper, and maybe we can, okay. This sunburst diagram right now looks more complicated because I have put not only gold medals, but silver medals, I think. So it requires a skill to work with this rawgraphs 2.0. Instead of learning how to use ChatGPT, you are using the final instrument, the final tool. This is the second tool I wanted to show you. And let's, okay, before we proceed to the next tool, I want to emphasize to show you how many options you have. And all of these options is excellent for data visualization. You can improve your status reports, your progress reports, your day-to-day base activities, and make it more visible, more acceptable to information. The third tool I wanted to show you is Sankey diagram. We all love good Sankey diagram. And actually it's already like a budget. So you have a salary, you have a budget, and you have spendings, and you are. It's a good visualization where you put your money to. So you can also copy paste this code into ChatGPT and use this example code and make me a sample project budget. You can, of course, modify it as you wish. Okay, this is a project budget, but that's not what I was asking for. I was asking for a code as a code for sunpmatic.com. I have modified the request, the prompt, and now I have the code which I just input in this window, and then these are actually something I have. It's exactly the same as okay, that's what I'm talking about. You have to fight ChatGPT in order to make it what you want it to make. So, but you got the idea. You can modify this text, this code as you need as a budget for the project, and you can visualize. Actually, I'm gonna try one more time, but this time I will just ask use this code as a reference and make a material balance of a power plant. I hope this time we will get better luck. So let's try. Yeah, this is a power plant material balance. You have fuel in, electricity out, something in between, some waste, etc. And it comes to 100%. It should be 100%. Okay, this is one more application. And let's proceed to the text processing application, which I'm going to use, which I'm using every day, actually. And I'm using these text processing abilities of ChatGPT and artificial intelligence for book writing, for report writing, for all related with the documents and presentations. And first one, you can see on my screen, there is a tool which is called overleaf.com, which is online-based LaTeX application. LaTeX is a special language for text processing. Instead of Microsoft Word and Excel, LaTeX is an alternative text processing using the coding language. Actually, it's a coding language which tells you you can tell exactly where you put every letter, every heading, every punctuation mark, every question mark at exactly location on the list on the sheet of paper. And you can see there's a CV, there is a resume of a person. And sometimes once I had 15 CVs, we were preparing the bid for a contract for a tender, and we have to have 15 exactly the same CVs, and these CVs look good if they are exactly the same format, in exactly the same fonts, in exactly the same view and looks the same. So I'm using this code as a base. I'm putting it into the ChatGPT, and I'm asking ChatGPT to please give me a CV as per this code, and then you put just text based of a person you want to have a CV which in the same format. So I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to change it to my CV. Please give me a CV as per this code for me, for Bernard Makeshev. I hope ChatGPT knows something about me. So let's try. Let's try what it generates. Actually, ChatGPT knows a lot about me. A lot of personal information, as I can see right now. But let's see how it works. So it is generating code. I'm looking at this code. I'm confirming the quality of this information. Then I copy this information and put it, replace the code, and let's hit compile. Yeah, actually it's not right. It's just made up information. ChatGPT just made up my biography, but it's okay for the demonstration, right? So if you have a lot of CVs which you have to format in this exactly the same format, it's a tool. Overleaf is a free tool. You can no, there is a subscription for certain applications for certain features, but I'm not using it, so I'm recommending it for text processing. And another application which I'm using a lot, I have been using this recently a lot, which is presentation. You can see my presentation. You could see my presentation in the first couple of minutes of my speech, and you can see that presentation is very minimalistic. Considerable amount of time in my early career I have spent working as a presentations maker, modify presentation, generate presentation, present in front of people, public presentation, etc. So I have an allergy for presentations which are complicated, which are cumbersome. So I'm trying to be as minimalistic as possible, and ChatGPT is perfect for that. And Overleaf is perfect for that, actually. So I can use this text as a template, and I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to use this code as a reference and generate presentation on project status. I hope it will work. Of course, you can modify it as you wish, but you have to learn the language. You have to learn LaTeX. LaTeX is a coding language. It's not complicated, but it's beautiful. But it requires you to learn, to study, to take courses, to take classes. And people in academia, in the universities, probably are laughing at my skills because they are using it more than I do. But I hope project managers will receive a lot of advantages if they learn this tool. And then I download it into PDF. And then if I want some beautiful images, some different types of formats. I just converted to PPTX, to PowerPoint, and using Designer, there is an inbuilt inside of PowerPoint, there is a Designer feature which you can make this presentation more beautiful. Right now, it's just text with exactly with beautiful fonts, and that's it. I like presentation to be like that.
These are
yeah.
Oh, just these are some wonderful examples, Ernar. We do have some really great questions in the Q&A that I'd like to get to. But if we have more time at the end, I'd love to see some more of these examples. But I wanted to get to the Q&A as we have about 15 minutes left. And so the first question I wanted to ask for both Kate and Ernar was, what are some of the key challenges that beginners face when integrating Gen AI tools into their existing workflows, and how can they be effectively addressed? So either Kate or Ernar, if you want to take that first.
Sure. So I'm happy to give just a brief answer. So I think when it comes to integrating Gen AI into workflows, it's important to recognize that many of the original challenges with AI and machine learning, they still exist and need to be managed. So those don't disappear. Things about data quality and having clean inputs into your processes, all of that still has to be managed, and making sure you actually have, you know, if you're summarizing a document, having the documents nicely cleaned up and ready to go and summarized, that's still going to be a blocker that has to be resolved. The generative AI provides some advantages, like we talked about. You don't need as much labeled data, so there's some of that gets easier, but it also introduces then net new risks that also have to be managed. Things like, on a safety perspective, we talked about hallucinations briefly. So, you know, you need more checks of your model output that need to be implemented to make sure that you can trust and that you verify any response, particularly before it's going out in the world. So I always recommend for people getting started with generative AI, start first with kind of what we call like back office applications and processes that are maybe a bit lower risk to work on, things that aren't going to have a huge human impact, but are very